In September 2023, Ubisoft had a free-to-play gem on their hands, XDefiant. The gameplay was good, the player base was bustling, transparency from the developers was highly praised, and most of all, the game had a really passionate and dedicated community. 6 months on, however, and things are somewhat different for XDefiant, with fans increasingly expressing their frustrations with the lack of updates. According to Ubisoft's Q3 2024 earnings report, XDefiant was scheduled to be released by the end of Q4 fiscal year 2024, which is March 31st. But with just less than a week until the date, there had been zero indication of a release. The once loved transparency is now seemingly dead, and XDefiant hadn't had an update for some time. Speaking with developers at Ubisoft who wish to remain anonymous because they're not authorized to speak about company plans, it's understood that XDefiant was aiming to release during the last week of February when this internal release date was made public via Ubisoft's earnings call, a deadline that was obviously missed. Insider Gaming understands that XDefiant has missed dozens of internal targets in the past couple years, including release dates, putting the game firmly in the realm of other Ubisoft titles that are constantly in limbo. Developers working on the project are becoming increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress. In short, the game's shortcomings stem from the executives' pursuit of trying to copy Call of Duty rather than building their own game. Creatively, it's been frustrating for the team, but from a technical perspective, it also presents new challenges and has become the main reason for delays. Said one source, the never-ending hunt to chase Call of Duty and add pointless stuff always breaks the current build, and this often requires days of fixing the game. And as is generally always the case with games in limbo, the root of the problem comes from the higher-ups, with the developers left with the burden. So the big question became, when will XDefiant actually release? The good news is that the game isn't in danger of being cancelled and development is still ongoing at its usual rate. In fact, just last week, XDefiant had a substantial playtest to test the netcode, online store, social media tabs, and more, and right now the current plan is to have another large open public test session as soon as possible. Of course though, this wasn't going to be the end of the story with XDefiant, and there's plenty more to uncover and talk about. Following Insider Gaming's exclusive report on March 23rd, it took all but 12 minutes for executive producer Mark Rubin and another disingenuous tweet from Aches to shoot down the rumors that XDefiant's delays aren't related to chasing Call of Duty. Nevertheless, Rubin did confirm that the game has yet again been delayed, but its latest delay was because of major technical issues related to the game's netcode, which is an issue that's been outlined since November of 2023. As previously mentioned, XDefiant has missed dozens of internal milestones and deadlines these past couple of years, and although Rubin's latest comments on XDefiant missing its latest release date due to the netcode are accurate, it's not a simple case of a one-and-done issue that has plagued the game for years. As Insider Gaming has reported, XDefiant's shortcomings stem from several executives and directors on the project, who have since been internally referred to as the Boys Club by a large majority of the team. At first, the Boys Club was the name given to a select few individuals who caused constant problems for the game's development, and this term was collectively agreed upon by some members of the team to feel a sense of camaraderie. But a couple of years later, that group grew to a dozen or so both male and female individuals, and its term has evolved into something much more bitter in the studio. Sources have said that the group has been the cause of missed deadlines, crunch, a toxic work environment, and multiple people leaving the project. While there isn't an exact date on when the club evolved into something more sinister, several sources stated that the change became most apparent around the time when the Tom Clancy brand was dropped, which was publicly announced early 2022. Before that decision, the game was intended to be released in the holiday of 2021 without any significant issues that plague the game today. This change, however, meant more freedom for the project, allowing the Boys Club to make unnecessary changes, which has had a domino effect on the progress of the game. And despite warnings from the team, it's currently added over 2 years to the game's development. Eventually, things got so bad that XDefiant's toxic work culture, crunch, and internal problems became so prevalent that knowledge of the Boys Club even spread to other studios at Ubisoft. Now, the issue with the Boys Club isn't that it's managers or directors telling developers what to do. After all, that's their job. But it's the lack of work ethic, unpleasant behavior, and the egos from these individuals that have created a really unhealthy place to work. It's meant that developers have been left with responsibilities beyond their original job descriptions, told to work tedious hours of overtime to complete tasks, and are often shrugged aside when suggestions don't align with the views of higher-ups. Insider Gaming was told that there have been many instances where people have cried, had mental breakdowns, or just stopped caring about their well-being because of the toxic environment fostered by the club. One developer working on the project described the boys club as a closed group of protected individuals who think they're better than everyone else and do as they please without any repercussion. Said another, one member has a history of treating people extremely badly, with more HR reports than I've ever seen. Even a former developer who has since left Ubisoft altogether because of how they were treated told Insider Gaming that they were frequently told by management things like, "What do you know? You've never shipped a game before," or "If you want to make it where I'm at, then you need to do X, Y, or Z." Said one developer working at another studio, "I've heard it's pretty bad over there, but it's bad everywhere at Ubisoft, to be honest." As of late 2023, the XDefiant team has been facing a huge hurdle with the game's netcode. As Mark Rubin had already outlined, the game's had significant issues with it and it's needed fixing. Ironically though, this has been a known issue for years, said people working on the project, and could have been avoided if leadership had listened to the rest of the team. But as the suggestions didn't come from within their bubble, or should we say the club, the advice was always ignored. When asked about the game's netcode issues, one developer said that there have been countless occasions where different teams would advise the boys club, for good reason, about making certain choices and decisions with months or years notice in order to avoid these issues down the road. Insider Gaming understands that the game's netcode is still a significant issue for the project, and that the team has recently been struggling to reach the internal goal of 100 players per server partition, a goal desired to support the expected hundreds of thousands of players that will play the game on launch. It's one of the major reasons for this past weekend's closed playtests. During these weekend tests, players who played the game and spoke to Insider Gaming said that the netcode still wasn't that great. Hit registration was described as being terrible or off by some sources, with bullets not registering, going around corners, and more. However, from the 5 playtesters we spoke to, the good news is that there weren't any major game crashes, but it's currently unclear if the game was tested in the triple digits or not. It's understood that the netcode issue originated from the significant changes that were brought on by the boys club after the Tom Clancy name was dropped. The simple case of just dropping the name based on fan feedback resulted in a frenzy to add new factions, maps, and other features that needed to be built from scratch. Internal feedback was ignored and corners were cut by reusing assets, resulting in huge technical issues that could have been avoided. Mark Rubin has said that he'll update the game's status in the coming weeks, but Insider Gaming understands that the current plan at the moment is for another public server playtest to test the netcode with a massive pool of players. Earlier we mentioned that XDefiant's delays have stemmed from the never-ending pursuit of chasing Call of Duty, which has resulted in developers becoming increasingly frustrated with the project's lack of progress. This isn't an issue that caused the recent delay, but an issue that has plagued the game for years and a subject that the boys club finds sensitive when brought up internally, and after our first report, seemingly publicly too. While there's no question that a new first-person shooter should take inspiration from other popular titles on the market, sources who spoke to Insider Gaming said that it became evident really quickly that Call of Duty was the only title that leadership was interested in. Sources said that almost every very creative decision for the best part of 2 years quickly ended with the same rhetorical question: what would Call of Duty do? As Mark Rubin said in his responses to our original report, the game remains the same that you played already, which we've tried to make as fun as possible, and we feel confident about this. Insider Gaming understands that yes, this is true. There haven't been any significant changes to the game since its last public playtest, and almost all of the additional features have been pushed back to be implemented into the game's seasons because of constant project pushbacks. This includes any form of true progression or challenges, including prestiging and weapon challenges, and other features such as kill cams, kill streaks, theater mode, a competitive mode, private matches, and more. Speaking on the boys club and its pursuit of Call of Duty, one source said they will nitpick the feature to their liking, similar to Call of Duty, and tell the design and production teams to come back later once they make the appropriate changes. Even once the team makes those changes, the boys club will come up with something else, and the process will repeat again for months, all resulting in either the feature finally being implemented into the game or being cut entirely. Another source said that the constant changing of approved features or adding new features that don't really affect the game has pushed us back significantly, probably a year or so at this point. Now, to be clear, chasing Call of Duty isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's one of the biggest first-person shooters of all time, so it makes sense. But when features are pushed back constantly or canceled entirely because they're not caught enough, it has a detrimental effect on those working on the project and the project itself. And some developers have even expressed immense frustration over XDefiant's seemingly positive, open transparency too. Sources said that this has previously included mentioning features that haven't yet been internally discussed or simply made up to mask what's truly going on. Said one developer, but hey, at least mentioning no skill-based matchmaking gets cheap brownie points, right? So, where's XDefiant now? Again, XDefiant is not currently cancelled. Following the insanely popular open test, Ubisoft has some expectations that the game could be the free-to-play hit that they've been looking for a number of years. That's why the internal goal right now is to get the game out the door, but it's unclear how long it'll take to fix the game's current issues. We'll ultimately have to wait on Mark Rubin's update for that one. Internally though, some developers believe that the seasonal content targets will almost certainly be missed due to ongoing issues, a lack of resources, and just staff wanting the XD saga to be over so they can move on to other projects. Unfortunately, XDefiant's story is a common one within the industry, but it should be talked about, reported on, and taken seriously. And when talking to Insider Gaming, a former developer of XDefiant summed it up all quite properly. It's clear that the video game industry is not in a good place right now, but something has to be done. Whether it's the unionization of workers or anything else, something has to be done for contractors and workers in the video game industry. For the longest time, I was told that's just how the industry is, but I refuse to believe that meaningful change can't happen one day. Hopefully, that day will come sooner rather than later.